Let's get into SmackDown from Spain, March the 14th, 2024. Spanish crowds were hot all night, even though they had no real reason to be hot, considering the show was mid at the most. But the energy of the show carried it. The European crowds, they are a huge topic of conversation. The non-American crowds, because Puerto Rico was also another very hot crowd, and Puerto Rico is the United States. It's a territory. But the European crowds and the crowds that don't get WWE that often, they're super excited. And people enjoy the show more when the audience is into it. That being said, the audience typically they take over. They typically become the star of the show. And Spain, much like France, much like Scotland, much like Puerto Rico, they took over the show, essentially. There was all kind of weird chants and a lot of stuff going on, which is always the case when WWE is going overseas. And not everybody is into that kind of thing. It doesn't really bother me. I don't really care that much about the soccer chants and everything, except for when they're non sequiturs. But it gets a lot of people on the internet really jazzed up. They're like, oh my God, everything is so great. Look at how great their audience is. I'm like, I'm not here to see the audience. Like, I want you to be interested in the show and fired up about the show, but I don't want you to be the star of the show. That's not what I want. I do not want the audience to take over. And the European crowds have a desire to take over. But otherwise, I think the crowd was very hot all night, even though I don't think they got much of a reason to be. But let's talk about some news and notes, and then we're going to go into the teasers as well. So, Note 1, there's some discussion about Jeff Cobb coming to WWE, and this was tweeted out. I forgot who started it, but there was some conversation that Jeff Cobb, who claims he was leaving New Japan upcoming, I think his contract is expiring at some point soon, and Jeff Cobb was on WWE's internal documents or something like that as on the roster. Jeff Cobb has started to troll about it by, doing troll tweets about the whole thing without, confirming or denying it. It seems like it would be an absolute slam dunk that he would go to AEW, because it seemed like that would be the best place for him. But he's a 40-year-old hefty Hawaiian guy. Let's just be honest. WWE doesn't need Jeff Cobb. It doesn't matter how good he is in the ring either. Triple H cannot sign every 40-year-old New Japan indie guy that, Vince wouldn't have signed 10 years ago. You don't have to sign these guys now. He's not Samoa Joe. He's not even the new Samoa Joe. I liked Jeff Cobb 10 years ago. I haven't watched Jeff Cobb match within the last few years, because he's been wrestling mostly in Japan. So I can't tell you how much worse he's gotten or how much better he's gotten. But I just don't see the value. He's not a top guy in Japan. Why would he be a top guy in WWE? Let him go to AEW. What benefit is he going to be on your roster? He's going to be another, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin level guy. In my opinion, he's going to come out there. He's got no discernible personality. He doesn't jump off the page. I mean, he's big and stout, but that's about it. You're going to put him in NXT. He's 40. You're going to bring him to the main roster and do what? He's going to feud with LA Knight or something? There's too many 40-year-old guys stomping around WWE as it is. This roster got so much older. As soon as Triple H took over, the roster got super effing old. Overnight. It's like Triple H just decided, if you're 38 years old and never worked in WWE before, we're bringing you in. And okay, for Penta and Phoenix, that's good. But for Jeff Cobb and the Motor City Machine Guns, no, we don't need these guys. They don't add anything. And it hasn't been beneficial to the show. Bronson Reed, okay, it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's kind of been in the middle. But, bringing back Braun Strowman and, bringing back Nia Jax, it's like, my God, enough's enough. And Jeff Cobb is like, I'm not saying he's a bad performer, but he's just not a necessity. If you're going to spend some money to bring in some talent, let it be a younger guy that you can send to NXT and develop. Like I heard that there were some discussions about Kevin Knight. Yes, that's one of the guys you should bring in. He's a younger guy. He's been working in New Japan. He's been working in, I think he did some stuff with Shade Wrestling. He did some stuff with MLW. He's been around, but he hasn't had a run anywhere. So if you stick him in NXT and give him some time to develop, he could be a top star for you. The only problem is he's very similar to Javon Evans, where he's a very, he's a black dude who's got, springs in his legs. But other than that, yes, you want to bring him in and try to, do something with him. Sure. You don't need 100 of those guys, but you can bring, him in and develop him in a different way. But Jeff Cobb, what the fuck can you do with this guy? Like, really, these guys are 40-year-old rookies. Why are you doing this? In any event, the conversation about Jeff Cobb has been interesting. I'm not thrilled about the idea, but whatever. Now, speaking on the other way around, Shinsuke Nakamura, there was some conversation that Shinsuke Nakamura was going to be released from WWE, that they were not going to re-sign him, and that they were going to let him go. This led to a lot of people being disappointed. This took place over the course of a week. Shortly after he lost the United States title, there was they're not going to re-sign Nakamura. He's going to be gone. He's on his way out. And then there was some conversation that he might have to, go home and sit out the rest of his contract. And then he wrestled on SmackDown. They're going to send Nakamura home. He's done. And now he's not done, actually. He wrestled on SmackDown and didn't lose either, So there was that. But of course it came out later on that Nakamura, that whole thing was a myth, that people were making it up. Nobody ever said that Nakamura wasn't going to get re-signed. Nobody ever said that he was being benched. None of that stuff was real. It was all bullshit. And that's why you shouldn't listen to the internet, So let's go and talk about the teasers now. There were 2 teasers on SmackDown. One was for Phoenix, which is obviously Phoenix was being teased. And it seems like they're going to bring Phoenix in on SmackDown, which is, I think, a great option. Phoenix should be developed on his own. Penta has set up a massive following and is a success on his own. And the Lucha Brothers could be great together. But Penta's already established on his own. He's already making money on his own. Let's do the same thing for Phoenix. Bring Phoenix to SmackDown. Let him run amok and be a star on his own. So then they're bigger when you put them together. That's a good option. That's a smart option. The only problem I got with Phoenix, of course, is that he's injury prone and he's a botch machine. If he can not botch as much and if he can stay healthy, Phoenix could be a top guy. Personally, I think you already got Dragon Lee. Phoenix is a good I'm not saying don't bring him in. What I'm saying is, whatever push Phoenix is about to get, they should give it to Dragon Lee first, because he's younger, he's better, and, I've been caping for Dragon Lee for over a year now, and it hasn't gotten him anywhere. I'm actually starting to think that the more I actually push for Dragon Lee, the more Triple H is going to kick him in the nuts. So maybe I should stop talking about him. But Phoenix is great. Phoenix is a fine talent. Him being on his own works out just fine for everybody involved. And then they can make more money when you put them together as the Lucha Brothers, as a tag team. But let him run as a solo act first. I like that idea. I don't think he'll actually debut until after WrestleMania, though, because there's no long-term plan that can dump him into the show right now. And WrestleMania is in like 3 weeks or something like that, 4 weeks. So there's not a lot of time to integrate him into the roster and give him a spot that matters, at least at this point. There was another teaser. There was a lot of smoke in the number 4, which a lot of people are led to believe is Aleister Black making a return to WWE, which I'm going to make a guess and say that it probably is Aleister Black. And he will more likely be brought in after the WrestleMania as well. Because, again, Triple H likes to book things long-term, like really far out. And there's no plans right now for these guys. To be quite honest, Aleister Black, as much as I am a fan of him, he is in the same situation as Jeff Cobb, where he's almost 40 years old. Do we really need him? It's like, well, I like the guy. I think he adds something to the roster. You know, he's been there before. His wife works there. There's some benefit to having an Aleister Black on the roster. But it's another spooky guy. There's too many spooky people as it is. You know, they don't use the spooky people that they have already. Do you put him with the rest of the spooky people? And they have a whole House of Horrors kind of gimmick, similar to what they did in AEW. Do you keep him on his own so he looks special? Do you lean more into the rock element and not so much into the satanic goth element? Vince seemed to be interested in exploring that direction. You know, the Tales from the Dark Father and all that, which is what makes him unique. But Triple H might want to, well, seeing what Triple H did with Damian Priest was basically he took Damian Priest, who was also more in the rock angle, and made him essentially a Satanist too, you know, with the Judgment Day, which was a little weird. But when you look at the SmackDown mid-card, they don't do anything with these guys. You got Andrade and Carmelo Hayes. These guys don't do nothing but lose, or they're not on TV. There's no consistency there. So they're certainly needed for the mid-card, but you have plenty of mid-carders that you don't do anything with. And bringing in more, you know, from Phoenix and Aleister Black to Miro and all these guys, bringing all these guys in when you don't do anything with the guys that you already got is problematic for me. I hate that. I hate that for them, and I hate it for WWE. It's a waste of talent. Let's talk about this show, though. 10 minutes, and we got to finally get into the show. LA Knight is challenged by Jimmy Uso. Jimmy Uso wants the U.S. title, or as he said, the U.S. tag team titles, but they edited it out for American television. Solo Sikoa thinks that Jacob Fatu should be the United States champion, called Jimmy an embarrassment. Jimmy, LA Knight are jumped by the Solo line, Solo's version of the Bloodline. And Braun Strowman makes the save. Braun Strowman should stop running. It seems like every time he runs, he looks like he needs a doctor afterwards. You know, this leads to a 6-man tag where Braun Strowman, LA Knight, and Jimmy Uso defeated Solo, Tama, and Jacob Fatu. Tama Tonga took the pin from Braun Strowman's running power slam. After the match, Jacob Fatu beat up Braun Strowman again, gave him a bunch of moonsaults, and crashed him into the barricade. And then later that evening, he challenged him to another match. I'm like, God damn. Like, this is the SmackDown mid-card, bro. Like, Jacob Fatu has all the momentum in the world. But instead of trying to push him towards the U.S. title, we're just going to keep this feud between him and Braun Strowman going. They had a match in January, and they're still feuding. Over what, though? Over what? I don't get it, man. Let's just have like a street fight or something and end this thing. I'm not sure Braun Strowman should be a focal point on your show when you have so many young guys and other bigger guys that you could be using, and Braun Strowman is the focal point of the show. I don't get it. I'm not understanding that, but I mean, it's not my decision to make. They're still teasing, obviously, the tension between Solo and Jacob Fatu. They need to do something with that soon, because I can't stand this continuing forever feuds where Triple H has things dragged out forever. There's a sit down for Jade Cargill where she explains why she attacked Naomi. She says that she did not see what happened. She just remembers being hit from behind and falling on top of the car, but she did see Naomi running away. I mean, that ass was inescapable, wasn't it? Just it was ass all over the place. You couldn't miss it, right? She then said that Naomi attacked more than just her. She attacked her heart. They were the big three. They attacked her trust. It's hard to trust anybody after this. And then you hear this cackling hen outside the ring. You're like, what the hell is that? And it's Liv Morgan with Raquel Rodriguez. And they're yelling at Jade. They want an apology. They said Jade should have said something a long time ago. They got accused because of Jade. So she's upset. Jade and Liv are yelling at each other. They agreed to have a match next week in Italy, which ought to be quite the test for Jade. Jade is going to struggle. I can feel it. Because Liv Morgan is not a ring psychologist. She's not bad. She's not as bad as she was 5 or 6 years ago. or maybe 10 years ago. But I don't think she's good enough to carry Jade. This ought to be interesting, how they get this thing to work. But they were trying to get an emotional side of Jade, but also explain why she might be turning heel. Because she was like, oh, I watched her and Bianca team up like nothing happened. It's like, okay, we can see that if they're not going to turn Bianca, they're going to more than likely turn Jade and have her attack Bianca and kind of use this as an excuse that Bianca just teamed up with Naomi, who attacked her, even though Bianca didn't know that. So I guess the big, reveal is going to be Bianca did know that, because they seem like they're going to turn her heel too. Whatever. I don't know, man. But Jade Cargill versus Liv Morgan, ought to be interesting. B-Fab speaks Spanish, and she's here to make her own legacy. She's going to wrestle Charlotte. B-Fab is way too green and way too slow as well. She didn't even know where to Irish whip Charlotte at one point in this match. B-Fab should just be a manager. She's got great charisma. She's got personality. I'm not sure she's going to make it in the ring, though. Charlotte wins the match with the figure eight, obviously. This is probably B-Fab's best match, but it come on. That's obvious, right? Charlotte does Stephanie Vaquer's knee thing, which got a lot of attention, but Charlotte's been doing that for a while, so it's not like she's stealing her thunder. After the match, Tiffany Stratton attacks Charlotte, and they get all tangled up, and I promise I could not tell who from who. It looked like they were wearing the same gear, pink tights and white boots. Is blonde hair flying all over the place. And when they're both bent over, you can't tell which one. Like, Charlotte is the taller of the two, right? Also the skinnier of the two. But when they're in a mob like this, you can't tell. They're a bucket of arms and legs. It's like two broken Barbies put together. I can't tell who from who. And they're brawling, which is not what I expected from this feud. I didn't expect to see them brawling. I expected to see them cutting each other up on the mic. But, whoever the producers are and the creative team, they can't come up with anything sensible. The obvious story of Charlotte and Tiffany Stratton, what that should be, is being thrown in the bin. Now they're just kind of generically brawling against each other. Tiffany Stratton jumped off of the top rope onto a ton of security guys. Charlotte fell too, even though she didn't get touched. But they're doing that. Then they got separated again. They continue to fight later. And then Tiffany Stratton jumps off the stage with a swanton onto Charlotte and a bunch of security guys. And Tiffany's really getting over as a babyface now. So this is okay, but it's not what it should be, if we're being honest. There should be a lot more emotional depth here and a lot more character work being done. But they just got, Charlotte's a bitch. She didn't want to release the figure eight from B-Fab. We were supposed to have sympathy for B-Fab, I guess. And Tiffany Stratton, of course, being the knight in shining armor, saves B-Fab. It's like, let Tiffany be a bitch. She's a bitch. Charlotte's a bitch. Charlotte's a bigger bitch. Just let them be bitches to each other and do the angle that seems to make the most sense to everybody, which is that they're very similar. And, whatever. That just seems to make the most sense. Like, this is a Charlotte and Tiffany Stratton should be Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels. That's how it should be booked. Look at that feud from, what was that, 2003? Where Ric Flair said that Shawn Michaels is a Ric Flair wannabe. That's what you should be doing. That should be the angle. It should be Tiffany Stratton's being called a Charlotte Flair wannabe. And that she tries to dress like her, she tries to talk like her, she mimics her, she does her moves, all this stuff. That's what the storyline should be. It doesn't diminish Tiffany, though, because everybody knows she can do her own thing. But what it should show you is that Charlotte is she's insecure about her position. Now, I guess that's why you wouldn't do it, is because you don't want to show that Charlotte is insecure. But it works. It works for emotional depth. It's a situation that a lot of people have to deal with. The old quarterback sees the young quarterback come in and, get a lot of time and get a lot of attention. And, maybe you're starting to think, man, am I being replaced? Like, what's happening here? And you fight from underneath to, or at least you perceive yourself fighting from underneath to get your position back. I don't understand why they're jumping off stuff on top of each other and while they're brawling like they have a blood feud against each other. Charlotte won the Royal Rumble. Like, that's what this feud is over. It's not over anything personal, but it should be personal. It should get personal eventually. But they've been dragging ass with this feud, and to be quite honest, I'm tired of saying the same thing over and over again. I mean, it is what it is. Drew McIntyre, they had a promo for him where he talked about Damian Priest benefiting from his distractions and his downfall. And they actually did a good job of showing this, because I hadn't really paid attention to it, that Damian Priest benefited from CM Punk attacking Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania last year. And then Damian Priest benefited from the distractions at Clash at the Castle. He also benefited from Money in the Bank. And then also at Royal Rumble when he was distracted. And also at Elimination Chamber when he was distracted. So it's like they did a good job of really kind of building this feud over the course of a year, even though I don't want to see this match. At least now it all makes sense. You know, that Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre have had this sort of relationship throughout the entirety of the year. But that doesn't make me want to see this match, of course. Later on, Shinsuke Nakamura wants a rematch for the U.S. title. Damian Priest wants to fight Drew McIntyre. They start speaking foreign languages to each other. Nakamura speaks Spanish, by the way. So they end up having a match that was 45-year-old Shinsuke Nakamura versus 43-year-old Damian Priest. That's what happened. The match is disqualification because Drew McIntyre got involved. Then Nakamura hit a Kinshasa to the back of Damian Priest's head. So Nakamura is still around. He didn't lose. And it is what it is on that front. The match was fine. It wasn't great. These are two former NXT champions. You would expect the match to be better, but both of them being, well, Damian Priest wasn't an NXT champion. He was a North American champion. But both of these guys probably peaked 7 or 8 years ago. They're not in their physical primes. They're slower than they used to be. And it wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst either. They certainly could have had worse. Chelsea Green is with her Secret Service because Alba Fire is now a part of her Secret Service. And Zelina Vega challenges her for the U.S. title. Piper Niven said, "You got to go through me first." And Zelina was like, "Okay." It's like, wait a second. Piper Niven is 3 inches taller and at least 180 pounds heavier. And she's going to do the JOB for Zelina Vega. Okay. How is that going to make sense? Why can't Alba Fire do the job for... I mean, Alba Fire is smaller than Piper Niven. It's more believable for Zelina to defeat Alba Fire, but I guess it's going to be a disqualification or some description or something, so hopefully. Next, we got Randy Orton versus Carmelo Hayes, which is the best match on the show. The Spanish peoples are singing Randy Orton's theme song. They're very excited. Randy got blown up very early in this match, apparently. You could just look at him and tell. They said he's 290, which is about what Brock was in his prime. You know, like he's just a massive ball of muscle now. But Randy, he's avoiding taking bumps. But this was a good match. Carmelo Hayes tries a springboard clothesline, but it's countered into a power slam. Great move, by the way. And then Carmelo Hayes eats an RKO, and that's it. That's the match. Afterwards, Randy Orton tries to show some respect to Carmelo Hayes, offering him a handshake. He kicks the hand away, of course, and only to get an RKO. And that's what you get for not showing proper respect, young boy. And Carmelo Hayes is a jabroni. He is a jobber to the stars. That's his position in the world now. He's not up and coming. He's a jabroni. Gunther versus Axiom. This was a surprise for me. Because Gunther is not on SmackDown, but it doesn't matter, I guess. Gunther shows up, calls himself the greatest European wrestler, but wishes that he was in Madrid. He got booed for that. He then said that he wants to challenge the best wrestler out of Spain. There's a kid he heard is the best wrestler out of Spain. He wants to fight this man in front of this man's home crowd. And this man is Axiom. who is, of course, the NXT Tag Team Champion, Axiom. He wrestled as a kid in NXT UK. He was born in Spain. This is his main roster debut, and he's wrestling the World Heavyweight Champion. They had a really good match. They had better matches before, though. They had matches in NXT UK, which were better than this. But this was actually very good. They gave Axiom a lot of offense. A surprising amount of offense, considering he's a tag team wrestler, and this was his main roster debut, and Gunther is the world champion. A top rope hurricanrana from Axiom, and Axiom hit his finisher, the golden ratio, which is like a running kick. But that was not enough. Following a lariat and a powerbomb, Gunther wins the match. Really good match. I enjoyed it. Later, Gunther goes to find Jimmy Uso and says that he thinks that Jimmy is the more mature of the Uso brothers, and that he himself has a little brother that he sometimes has to, put back in line. So he wants Jimmy to go talk to Jay and talk Jay out of this WrestleMania match because he don't want to have to hurt Jay. Jimmy, of course, is on Jay's side and says that Jay is going to take that World Heavyweight Championship. And Gunther says, okay, well, whatever happens to him is going to be on you. So there's that. Cody Rhodes is on Miz TV. The Miz, he talks for 20 seconds, then he interrupts Cody's entrance and takes a crossroads. Cody Rhodes says that he will not talk to anybody that is not named John Cena, and that John Cena is going to be on Raw this Monday, and so will he. And that's it. There was no Miz TV segment, which I know made some people happy because they hate The Miz, but I was disappointed because I love The Miz. But John Cena apparently went and got hair transplant. He doesn't have the baldy anymore. That happened quickly. Why didn't he do that before is kind of my question. Like, everybody's been making fun of John Cena's bald spot for like 2 or 3 years now. And now, all of a sudden, he's about to get this big final run. He's going to get rid of the bald spot. He should have got rid of the bald spot a long time ago. John Cena, you're a multimillionaire. All right? It's not hair plugs, brother. That looked like a hair transplant that he got. So it looks good. It looked like it's really good work. Now, MJF probably got hair plugs, but John Cena, it's a hair transplant, brother. Anyway, Cody Rhodes is all fired up. He didn't do much of anything, but the Spanish people were still happy to see him. Again, another week of Cena not showing up, not doing anything. Then they sent out Paul Heyman, who spoke but didn't have anything productive to say. All he says is Roman Reigns Day because 2K25 is out, and there's people who might have problems with that. And it's CM Punk and Seth Rollins. And if you have a problem with that, you need to talk to my tribal chief in Bologna next week, because he's going to be in SmackDown next week. He's going to be in Bologna, Italy next week. This is stupid. Why would you send Paul Heyman out there just to announce that Roman Reigns is going to be on SmackDown next week? I don't get it. Paul didn't have anything to do. They sent him out there to do a commercial for 2K25. That's what they did. This is stupid. Main event of the evening, the Street Profits win the WWE Tag Team Championships away from DIY. Everything was over in Europe except DIY. DIY was the least over thing probably in the entire company. I think BFAB got a better reaction than DIY. DIY got no reaction whatsoever. The Street Profits are now the tag team champions. I think this is only the second time they've been the tag team champions, which sucks because they've been very good. And now they're, I guess, heels or dark baby faces or whatever. And now they're the top tag team, which makes sense. They're continuing the tag team thing with the Motor City Machine Guns watching and Pretty Deadly watching. And Legado del Fantasma was talking that yin yang earlier. So I'm guessing they're about to plan some kind of 6-pack challenge, some kind of ladder match or something at WrestleMania with all these teams, which is fine to throw everybody on the card. But I'm cool with the Street Profits being the tag team champions. I think they should have been the champions before, and they should be high energy baby faces, what they were before. Like, it's like Triple H got rid of all of the fun tag team baby faces. They got rid of the New Day, and now he's getting rid of the Street Profits. It's like, okay, so who are going to be like the bubbly, high energy babyface tag team? Like, every company needs that. Every company needs a Rock and Roll Express, you know, Too Cool, the Rockers. Every team, every company needs that high energy, pure babyface tag team. And you had that with the New Day. Then you turn New Day heel, which is fine because they were stale. But then you got the Street Profits, and then you kind of mitigated them as well. They're not heels because DIY are heels, and Legado del Fantasma are heels, and Pretty Deadly are heels. So, like, you can't turn everybody heel, goddammit. But you made the Street Profits darker and less entertaining, you know, when they were another high energy, pure babyface tag team that people can get behind. Why make them in any way rugged? Like, you need these teams. You need like a Too Cool, right? Those teams should exist. And I don't see WWE having a team like that right now, unless it's somebody that I'm not thinking of. But they don't have it on Raw or SmackDown at the moment. You know, like Axiom is the only team that they got, and they are in NXT. Like, you need a pure babyface athletic tag team. And they pretty much have gotten rid of that with the Street Profits, which is unfortunate. But at least the right team are the champions. The Street Profits are at least over. They can at least talk. They have personality. This works out fine. Now, in terms of the show was pretty mid. I did like Gunther versus Axiom. I did like Randy Orton versus Carmelo Hayes. But the United States Championship at WrestleMania is looking quite foggy. You have Jimmy Uso challenging for the title. That's fine, but you still have Carmelo, you have Andrade, you have so many guys that could be wrestling for the U.S. title that is pretty much begging that you do some kind of schmaz, some kind of six-pack challenge, you know, whatever, for the U.S. title. I think that does a disservice to the belt, because you still got Nakamura there, too. So, you got at least 4 or 5 challengers, but none of them really stand out and leap off the page as being guys who should be challenging for the belt. And you still got Solo and Jacob Fatu. So, you're looking at some kind of probably 8-man ladder match. I can see that they probably have a ladder match for Saturday and a ladder match for Sunday. They're most definitely going to do a multiple team thing for the tag team titles. But they're probably going to be a multiple man thing for the U.S. title too. Which I think kind of devalues the belt personally. Like, I think that, yeah, it's a lot of people who want it. But you throw all these people in one match. You throw people in this soup because they're not over. And because the angle isn't over. So something tells me they probably won't even have a WrestleMania match. They might do some shit where the U.S. title is defended on the SmackDown before WrestleMania. The same night as the Battle Royal. Which, if they were smart, I would do that. Have the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal the day before WrestleMania. And whoever wins that Battle Royal is challenging for the U.S. title at WrestleMania. Therefore, you can throw in Jacob Fatu and Braun Strowman and Solo and Shinsuke and Jimmy and all these people into a match that matters on SmackDown. And then LA Knight is just waiting to see who his opponent is going to be at WrestleMania. And that person could be the person who won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Do that. That's probably your best option. But right now, it's looking like it's going to be some kind of soup of 6 to 8 men in a ladder match of some kind. And there's people on the internet who like that kind of thing. I don't. This is WrestleMania. I don't need all these bunched up ladder matches, all these bunched up 6-man tags, and all this kind of shit. Yes, it's fine for the mid card of the stuff, but this is a championship. You know, this is a title that should be, and more importantly, LA Knight is over. That's the most important thing. He's over. He can carry a match by himself. He doesn't need all these guys, try to carry all these guys. Get him one opponent. One guy who actually matters. And let that guy challenge LA Knight. The rest of this show, though, it was what it was. They're still not moving that main event any further. But Cena's going to apparently be on Raw for the next month or something like that. So he's apparently going to show up on Raw this week and the next 2 weeks before WrestleMania. And then he's going to be disappearing again. So we don't know. Like, this is just obviously his alleged schedule. So we're going to be waiting for a while, but the mid card needs some work. Tiffany versus Charlotte especially. These pull apart brawls are not really working. I don't think people care like they should care. A lot of this is the lack of emotional investment because they're not really cutting promos. They're just kind of brawling every week. And it's generic brawling too. Tiffany Stratton keeps jumping off things, which is nice, but she needs like an entire row of people to jump onto because apparently nobody ever catches her when she jumps off stuff. This is a recurring theme with Tiffany Stratton, is that she jumps off like ladders and the top rope and she misses and hits the floor every goddamn time. So this time they decided we're going to put 18 guys in front of this thing, and Charlotte's going to be way over to the left, and you're not going to hit Charlotte at all. Charlotte's just going to fall down because everybody falls down, and that makes it look like shit. Tiffany was great in NXT. The main roster usage of her has not been strong. They need to change that. Let her be herself. Let her be who she is. She is a main event heel, but she needs to play a babyface in this role. That's fine. But they desperately need some help when it comes to the women on SmackDown. Specifically, Charlotte and Tiffany. They need a lot of help. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you guys later.